What is up, everybody? My name is BobaTalks and welcome to my Arrow Season 6 Episode 6 review titled Promises Kept. Now this was a good episode because we got some more Deathstroke flashback scenes, some Slade and Son scenes, as well as some Oliver and Slade scenes, which is always something I like to see because of course this was a part of the second episode in the 2-episode Deathstroke story this season. And of course this episode was absolutely action-packed, and you know, Arrow is obviously always well known for its, choreography in terms of fight scenes, but this episode, or every episode of this season, has been stepping up more and more, and I'm just blown away every single time. Obviously last episode we got the Deathstroke insane slicing scene, and this episode as well, in the Deathstroke flashbacks, we got quite a bit more of that. Not even to mention the blade battle we got later on in the episode as well. So let's talk a little bit more about the Deathstroke flashback scenes. Just like last episode, we got some more. In last episode it was more of, Slade and Son going camping way before Lian Yu, kind of setting up that storyline of Yao Fei. But in this episode we had our Mirakuru Slade, and it started off with him kind of having a lid on it because him and his son Jo, or Kane, whatever name you want to call him by, were in the Australian Secret Service or whatever you want to call it. But we got some scenes where he was just being a bit hard on his son, and we know it's because he's not the same guy as he was before. And slowly but surely throughout the episode, the man that was Slade was slowly crumbled into the pure Mirakuru fueled Deathstroke, and that's all because of Shadow really making him keep his promises, which I guess obviously was, inflicting the same pain on Oliver Queen that he had dealt on Slade. I really like these flashbacks, and I feel like they're so important to the show and gave us a lot more context of obviously what happened in between Lian Yu, even after then and before the return to Star City, of which Deathstroke came back in Season 2 to basically be the villain for Oliver Queen that season. I know in Season 2 we got the reasonings behind his villainy, and it was because of the Mirakuru, and we learned even in Season 2 Shadow was kind of whispering in his ear the whole time. But seeing the struggle even further back in time and involving his son and that relationship was just so much more interesting than what I could have really imagined. He carved absolutely everyone up in the building because he claimed that they were in his way, and it really just I don't know, I really enjoy these flashback scenes because there really is a difference between Slade Wilson and the Mirakuru Slade Wilson, and seeing that unfold in this episode shows you how much of a monster that man is, and that really isn't who Slade is at all. And the fact that all of this unfolded in front of his son and he witnessed it, it really added the context of the episode as to where Slade felt guilty for the man that Jo had become in modern day. And this brings me on to the reunion of Jo and Slade in this episode from where we left off from last episode, and I was really glad that Slade didn't really sell his soul just to sort of get on with his son, because I thought that might actually happen. Obviously he just wanted to find his son with Oliver last episode, but in this episode we saw that he wanted to join the Jackals and he would really do anything to be with his son again, up until the point in the episode where obviously Oliver was there the whole time, in and out, and we learned that, he can't let this operation with Jo go ahead. And there's this moment in the episode where the Jackals had captured Oliver, and Jo offered Oliver up to his father for him to get his revenge on him taking an eye, so basically an eye for an eye. And this led us to that moment in the episode where Slade was so convincing to the point where even I questioned, wow, like, is he gonna try to kill Oliver Queen? Obviously Oliver's hands were tied and stuff like that, so we all knew that he wouldn't have plunged a sword through his neck or something like that. But when the actors have the ability to sort of convince you, even though it's not happening at the same time, that's when I'm really drawn in. So I loved that scene. But back to the point at hand, Slade didn't really sell his soul just so he could be close with his son again, because he could have easily have done that. And Oliver even said himself that he didn't 100% believe it and it was almost too convincing, and Slade admitted that he was tempted because he would have done almost anything to keep him and Jo together. So all of this was awesome in the episode. I was lapping it up. I thought it was brilliant, everything between Deathstroke and his son, but I also liked Deathstroke and Oliver, or should I just say Slade and Oliver now, because Slade is obviously a good man in present day. I've already said that I'm glad he didn't just sort of go back to the dark ways, because that could have been a very easy thing to do when you've already gone down a dark path before. But what also made me really happy in this episode is that Oliver and Slade really kind of do have this connection now, with the fact that they can both relate to each other in terms of how they both have sons. Now obviously this was very much so put across to being the point in this 2-episode Deathstroke story, storyline, the fact that Slade came to town asking for Oliver for help, but it was kind of up to Oliver to pick Slade up from the ground because his hopes were really going down the drain when he realized how kind of lost his son had become, because we had little things in the episode like when Slade was deliberately trying to wound the people that they were attacking, where Jo just came along and absolutely slaughtered them with his sword. So he really has gone dark, but Oliver was insistent that if he kept trying and if he kept trying, he would break through to his son, and that he can understand the man that he is today and not the man that Slade was worried about that Jo had molded himself after, which was Deathstroke. Now, as for the Team Arrow side of things, obviously Diggle is still struggling in this episode with the steroid drug. We also got our first introduction into Richard Dragon. Now, I have to admit, I wasn't majorly impressed by him this episode, but in saying that, I kind of think that Arrow are kind of holding him back, and all the badassery from this season's main villain will come a little bit later down the line. But what they did in this episode, I feel like I'm on the side of maybe they held him back a bit too much, because I wasn't that impressed by his entry, and this is the guy who's meant to be the main villain. But also at the same time, in terms of the actor and the character he was playing, I was quite intrigued, and I am looking forward to seeing more, but I just wish there was a little bit more, I don't know, pitch for this character that could have been put across in this episode. But I'd love to know your thoughts on that. Were you blown away? Because normally, traditionally, in previous seasons, the first introduction of the villain's quite this prestigious, like, explosive event, but the way it was put across in this episode is that Diggle met his dealer, which actually turned out to be Richard Dragon, and the interaction through there on out in the episode was fairly tame. I mean, obviously we know Richard Dragon's quite the badass in the comics, and I'm sure he will be on the show. I mean, it's not going to be tame throughout the whole season, but I don't know, I just kind of wanted a little bit more in that introduction of this season's main villain. That aside, the action in this episode was just incredible. I love the gadget arrow that Diggle had, where he just shot the crossbow bolt and it hit the car dashboard, which hacked it and activated the airbag, which knocked the guy out. Now that is what I love to see. Obviously we had a lot of action in the Oliver Slade part of the episode, but that scene at the end where they were fighting with their swords amongst the water supply stuff, I think that was both a really cool action scene and then also really powerful and emotional scene. And I got kind of confused at one bit when Jo said that he has a brother. Did he also say that he killed him as well? Because this also contradicted, or maybe I'm just picking it up wrong. Slade at the end of the episode, of course, left and said goodbye to Oliver because he wanted to find both of his sons. So maybe that obviously means reaching back to Jo eventually, but he also wants to find his other son, who we've also seen in Legends of Tomorrow, by the way. But I don't know, did Jo say that he killed him 6 months after that camping trip, like actually Grant? I'm not sure. And just also on the note of that, that's pretty insane. Jo was very young in that camping trip and he made his first kill 6 months after that, so you can only imagine how much of a screwed upbringing Jo has had, which, I don't know, molded him into the guy he is today. Now, also going back to Team Arrow, I'm glad that Diggle made the apology to Team Arrow, because this has kind of been dragging on a little bit in the past few episodes, but also at the same time it makes sense because Oliver has temporarily put things behind in terms of hanging up the hood, and Diggle has been struggling ever since getting this tremor. Which brings me on to Lila as well. We saw her in the episode, and although she didn't have much of a big role, it was nice seeing her have her part to play in terms of Diggle's talk and discussion about using these steroid drugs. We also got a couple of teasers in terms of how this can be fixed for Diggle, so whether it be through Argus, because I remember Diggle mentioning that at some point in the episode, and if they have a plan in terms of how they can fix him instead of him using the steroid drugs. And then Curtis at the end said, well, I am the guy, to be fair, who invented this chip that allowed Felicity to walk again, so why didn't you consult me sooner? And that's really true. If Curtis could pull that off, well, why didn't Diggle just open up a bit sooner? I mean, I do obviously get there were pressures and stuff like that to keep Star City safe whilst Oliver was gone, but I don't know, like, I would have definitely hit Curtis up. But overall, guys, I enjoyed this episode. I'm sad to see Deathstroke go for a while. I don't know if we'll be seeing him again. We might see him again in the back half of the season, but not anytime immediately soon. But the scenes with him and Jo and Oliver and all that action the past couple of episodes, to be honest, has been brilliant. I really appreciated the interaction and development between both Slade and Oliver, because they've had a really rich history and they left things off quite nicely. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him come back and seeing what's next for those two. The Team Arrow stuff, I didn't talk about that a whole great deal because I felt like not much happened. And yes, I say that including the introduction of Richard Dragon, because as I said, it was kind of underwhelming, but I hope deliberately so, because there's obviously a whole lot more badassery to come with Richard Dragon, but I don't know, personally I would have stepped it up a little bit in the first episode if I were to introduce him. And as for the rest of the storyline, well, I don't know, Diggle might have a way out of his hand tremor, but apart from that, not much else happened. I did quite appreciate the Easter eggs of obviously Felicity and William playing Injustice, I believe. Let me know if you noticed that as well in the comments below, and let me know if you noticed any more Easter eggs. Even though I like the storyline at the minute with Diggle being the Green Arrow, I'm kind of glad that is coming to a close extremely soon, since the crossover is only around the corner and we know Oliver's back in the Green Arrow suit. So yes, just to say one more time, even though I do like Diggle and the current storyline at the minute, and I can never really hate on Dig, I've never really been a fan in any of these shows where, I don't know, the Flash might lose his powers for an episode or two, or like Oliver's taken his suit off before for an episode or two. And as for this season, I don't want it to happen really for any more episodes. But apart from that, guys, let me know what you thought of this episode down in the comments below, and let me know what you thought of this video. And if you did enjoy it, please leave a like, as it really does show your support for the channel. And if you're new to this channel, maybe even consider subscribing to stay up to date with everything Arrow Season 6, or should I just say Arrowverse. You can stay a little bit more up to date with me personally by following me on social media. The link should be popping up on the screen around here or in the description below. But apart from that, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.